if someone's friends cannot trust them enough to give them money, why would me, a stranger,
Why should I? It's
trust
a
them
fair
so
question.
much?
Yeah, it's a fair question.
Why should I, right?
And these loans, are they in any way collateralized, or
No,
you just
no. Not with landed property, right? We
okay?
would use things like the inventory itself. It could be
Okay,
something, but not with landed property. We
not
have other
with
ways to ensure that we
you get
mitigate
money.
that risk. Yes.
All right, all right. I mean, Sefa, thanks a lot for sharing all of that. I find them very useful, right? And I'm sure that there are a lot of people out that'll find that very useful. But back to conversation around starting and scaling businesses, right? Now, your model is basically built around a particular sector of the economy, a particular, business. You provide support for a particular set of business. Is there a possibility of expanding that scope in the near future? Or for now,
Very
it's
well.
just
Absolutely. So our purpose as a company is to help local businesses thrive and excel. So
okay.
whatever it is that's going to help local businesses thrive and excel is within our scope of what we can do, because
Got
that's
it.
why we exist. Right now, that said, even in the business of providing working capital, we move. Our plan has always been we would move from one sector to another because we want to be experts at doing that, and that's how we would ensure that we can provide the best type of service.
Yeah.
Right. For instance, our interest rates are. We go and check that with this interest rate, right, and with this level of interest rate, yeah, we know that this person is going to be making money from what they are taking from us, and we know that there's a certain interest rate that no longer makes sense for this business. So if that class of business goes to some lender that's charging some really high interest rate,
Exorbitant, yeah.
there is going to be a problem. At some point, the guy is going to find it difficult to pay back, right? And so we already analyze that and know in our minds that look, it just doesn't make any sense to charge this guy more than this amount.
You won't be able to pay.
You won't be able to pay. You get what I mean? So
Yeah, no.
you that's what that type of expertise helps us to do, right? Really understand the business and serve the customer's needs, and understand what is practical from the customer's point of view. Now, just because the person is paying back a loan with an interest rate that doesn't make sense doesn't mean that it's sustainable for them. And so what happens down the line, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, the person is going to pass. Do you get what I mean? And so for us, we put all of that into consideration. That's why it's about being an expert of a certain sector of the market.
It's a key problem.
Then if we're going to expand, we'll expand again, but we're only going to expand when we become an expert. So the approach for that would not be like, it would be like you're launching a new product
line, a new product. So
that's what it is. It's a new product line.
Yeah. I
Exactly.
totally get it. Makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And thanks for sharing that. Now, you touched on a subject that is a bit all this is close to my heart, but this is even closer, right? The long-term sustainability of the businesses of your clients, right? A lot of business people don't think about these things. We just want to, what can I get out of there, right? Let me survive today. We can talk about the future later. But you're taking a very different approach. I mean, it's borderline destructive, right? Thinking that you need to be sustainable for me to be sustainable, right? And if I can get you to be, do business with you in a way that is sustainable, maybe you'll be here long enough for us to even build something together and we grow together, which is great, right? Now, the question I have for you on the back of that, Sefa, is as great as it is for these businesses to get rates that are competitive and great, right? That helps them to do their business in a way that's profitable. How do you manage that vis-a-vis your own internal stakeholders, right? Your funders, and maybe it's okay for me to assume that the money is not coming out of your private pocket that you're lending, right? It's coming from funders.
I, I've
I
not made
wish
that much money yet. Yes.
I really wish but I know
Yeah.
that money is probably coming from other stakeholders and all of that. So how do you balance that in a way that ensures that, they don't feel like they can get better value for their funds elsewhere, uh, than what they're getting from suppliers or obtaining?
Yeah. So there are different ways to look at it. Because at the end of the day, what you're looking at is your overall revenue.
Yeah.
You may come from you may decide to go with, I'm going to have high interest rates, high default rates. Once this squares out, you may be like, okay, I have an okay interest rate, extremely low default rates. It's this squares out. Because for everything you're defaulting, it's like a line item on your P&L.
Yeah.
Anytime someone doesn't pay back, there's that line item. So at the end of the day, you have to now ask yourself, which game do you want to play? Okay. And all that. Now, for the type of businesses that we serve, the game that makes most sense is the game we're playing, which is we would give interest rates that make sense. They're competitive. Yeah, not like Father
Free.
Christmas, but
Yeah.
yes, they're competitive. And at the same time, we'll make sure that people are able to pay back. Why? Because these are traders who buy and sell every day. Now, there are different types of businesses. Some of the businesses are not the ones who buy and sell every single day. Some don't need that much capital. So it depends on the game you want to play. If you want people who, okay, someone has a contract, someone has a particular, one of a deal where the profit margin is large. Yes, then you can play that game. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? So there are deals where people on a transaction, they are making as high as 60%.
But
It's one of, they might not have any deal again for the next 7 months.
Yeah.
Do you get where I'm coming from? So,
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's great. It's good use of your money. And those type of people are also the people that can disappear more easily than the other. So, so it's really, just to keep it purely mathematical, it's a case of, what's my overall revenue, right? Because at the end of the day, you do the math and say, what's the effective interest rate, right? There's the interest rate, there is the cost of funds, then there is the default rate, and at the end of the day, if I plus or minus, what is the end? And if the end of that makes sense to you, then by all means, you should go with that. So our stakeholders are fine. We have good gross margins, so we're good.
At the end of the day, it's a gross margin game, right? It's a gross margin game.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And this takes me to the next question around, sort of where you, just like what you spotted in the market when you started doing the whole supply chain intervention thing, you noticed, right, amongst maybe your customers there, maybe the people you are piloting stuff with, and that certain funding, it's a big deal for these guys. And if that can be cracked, right, it will be a great unlock, right, of potential or of opportunity. So you speak to an average, entrepreneur or somebody who has an idea or who has started playing with one or two ideas, right, out there in the market, and the conversation is always around, I wish I can lay my hands on $1 million or 2 or 10 million or 50, or you understand. Funding conversation is never, is always there, right? Would you be able to share with our viewers how you managed that, how you overcame that funding challenge? And maybe, I know you probably went through some kind of programs and all of that, but fundamentally, in principle, what are the things that they can take from you, right, and reapply in their own case and see how they can also who do they need to become to be able to attract funding? I think that's a better way to put the question.
Yeah. So what I say the first thing to do is to understand the different, vehicles that are available, and then check that versus the type of business that you want to, right? So when you're thinking about getting funding for an entrepreneur, you need to think about who are the people who provide funding for entrepreneurs. What do they want out of the funding experience? In our case, we went for venture capital, right? And what they want is a business that has the potential to become $1 billion business at a minimum, right? So the question is, are you working on something that in the next 5 to 7 years can become $1 billion business? That's the question to answer. If your answer is yes, then you can go for venture capital, right? That sort of thing. And so that's the first stage. And there are a lot of businesses that don't need to bother with that. There are other ways that you can get funding, right? Yes. Well, first is think about that. When you're done, next thing you need to think about is where are you starting from? Okay. It's a very important question. Yes. Are you the son of a wealthy man? Are you the son of a wealthy man that will give you $1 million? If that's it, then very nice. You're gonna write the check. If you're not in that position, then you have to start from where you are, right?
You are.
And the big question to every single person is, why should they give you their money? And if someone's friends cannot trust them enough to give them money, why would me, a stranger?
Why should I? It's a fair question. Much. Yeah, it's a fair question.
Why should I, right? So all of that. So I said start from where you are and all that. And I know that this may sound cliche, but I love, when you hear, you don't really need money. When motivational speakers say you don't need money to run the business. I mean, you start from where you are.
Do you agree with that statement, by the way?
That you don't need money. I think that
I'll get an element of truth.
There is, right? I just feel like if you're making, I'm going to say this because you're a Christian, I'm a Christian, so we know some things in terms of the church background. There are things that on Sunday service, the pastor is going to come and say. There are the things that the pastor will never say on Sunday service, but when he's having his pastor summit for his junior pastors, he will say those things there. Because they can take process that and decipher it and process it properly. Do you get? So when you make a statement that you don't need any money to run a business, it is true for someone who understands that level. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Yeah. So for someone else, it'd be like, what is this guy talking about? Right? So if you ask me, I'll say, look, you need money to run a business. However, that's not the first thing that should come to your mind. So I guess that's what they usually try to say when they say you don't need money.
Which is a fairer approach, right? So you're not denying the fact that they need it, right? Or certain things needs to be in place for them to, otherwise that money will just go down the drain,
Absolutely, right? So back to the individual or group of individuals who want to start this business. Do you know the business you want to start? Do you have the skill set to make it happen? What can you do to show that you know what you are talking about? Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So, like I said, step number one is, what's my type of business? And this my type of business, what type of investor can you attract? So you need to be clear on that. So you understand the different vehicles that are out there and what they can attract. Now that you're clear on the type of investors that it will attract, the next thing would be, well, how can I show that I know I can run this business? And then the last would be, how can I reach these investors to show them? Okay, so these are like tricky things. In our case, before I resigned, we had already started like a map. There was traction. We had people using this app. Though there was nothing behind the app besides one thing that people press. The rest people will rush and go and buy it in the market from whoever has it.
And there you go. So
Because we just wanted to see if there was something there, right? Before we even started thinking about, okay, where are we going to get vans? Okay, we'll buy some vans. And at some point, we're now working with third-party logistic partners, all of that stuff. But it's from one state that you get to another. In our case, once we decided that this is something we're going to do, I resigned. The way for us to connect to those investors was via Y Combinator. We were lucky enough to be part of the Y Combinator process that gave us a lot of exposure to investors, local investors in Africa, and then Europe and North America as well. Yes. So, but before we went to the third leg, which is how do we access the investors, we're already clear on the first leg of our business can grow really fast and become $1 billion business. We have done something to show that we have the expertise to make this thing happen. And then we now got into Y Combinator, which helped to give us exposure to a lot of investors and also teach us a lot on just how to grow and run a technology business.
Wow. Thanks a lot, Sefa, for that. You in the course of this conversation, you've said something a couple of times, right? And I want to double click on it, right? You said something like before I resigned, right? And and I just want us to double click into that a little bit to talk about your transition from paid employment, right, into full-time, because at times we get ideas that we're so excited about the idea, we have not proven it in any way. And then the first thing is, I resign, I face this. What would your advice be for that smart guy who is working somewhere, earning some, not bad salary, maybe not good salary, but not bad salary either, but you get what I mean, but has this idea and it feels like this is going places, right? What would your advice be to that person in navigating, that turn?
So before I answer that question, I was thinking about a meme that I saw yesterday on the WhatsApp status of a mutual friend of ours, Ayo, what you got?
Okay.
So I saw the meme and it was one guy that there's someone saying, they asked the guy a question. They said, what advice do you have for the coming generation? And the guy said, don't come.
I saw that. Yes, I just shook my head. I saw this guy is not serious. Don't come. Don't bother come.
Don't come. So, yeah, I'm not going to say don't come, right? So what I'll say first is it's if you want to be an entrepreneur because it appears to be cool, then don't bother. It's not worth it, right? If you want to be because that's what you're passionate about, then you should. And not just passionate about, that's what you maybe passionate. That's what you want to do, right? And not because you feel like you're going to make more money from that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And that's important because it's incredibly more difficult than when you're in paid employment, like way more difficult, right? And so if you are not passionate about it and you're not making that decision because you want to be a businessman or an entrepreneur, but it's just because you feel it's cool and you want to make money, then don't bother, right?
Bother.
Now, that being said, if you want to, there are a couple of things that you can do before you resign, right? And the I'll share my story. For me, it's a bit different because, my dad is an entrepreneur, so I grew up in a household that is, in that sense, not conservative, right? I was never raised to say, "Hey, go get when you go to school, you get a good job, and you get a good job and you be promoted and all of that." No, never. When I got a job and I was going for the job, my dad was like, "Hey, you said you're not going to do a job, right? What's happening?" And I was like, "Don't worry, I'm going to do it for 18 months and I'll gain some experience." And that's how I ended up in Procter and Gamble for 7 years plus, right? And ended up working for quote unquote paid employment for say 13 years. But my story is a bit different. When I was resigning and I told, and I sent the message to the family WhatsApp group, and my mom said, "Finally," so it's a bit different.
Well,
Yes, yes, right. So it's a bit different. That sort of thing. It's different. I spoke to my wife about it. I was just like, "Hey, yeah, you should go ahead and do it," because she had already known, right? Since that's what I was about.
mm-hmm.
Now, this is just one aspect that is really important. Having a solid support system that would encourage that, because people look at me and say, "Hey, you had a not too bad job and you were on track for really good things. Why would you make this type of decision?" And I know that no matter how tough it gets, nobody in my family is going to make that type of statement to me. Not my wife, not my father, not my mom. I don't know if you get what I mean. All they're going to say is that, "Hey, this is how business can be. Sometimes, it works. Sometimes it doesn't. You're going to get back on your feet." Do you get what I mean? So having that
Yeah.
solid support system in my case was really important. Now, for people who may not have this type of support system, it's a different ballgame. You have to be a bit more mentally tough, right?
Mm.
That's on the you know soft side of things. On the hard
Yeah.
side of things, we did a lot of experiments. We had a pilot already, right? Stevie still had his job when we built that up. You get, and so it was savings from our
So
job
Steven is like
that
your
we.
CTO, right?
Yes, so I see to you.
Okay.
He still had his job when we built the app. When we're doing that pilot, I had a job, Steven had a job. And
Mm.
we were working at night. So in the daytime, we do our daytime job. Then at night, it would be me and Steven.
You
And
call
then we
there.
had to meet some other people who help us go to the field to check something. Then on Saturdays, we also go and do small research. And then we'll come back again. And at night, we'll be working. Right? So it was that sort of thing because you have to build conviction that
Mm.
is this thing, is
Going.
there something here?
Mm.
You know? And then we also didn't resign at the same time. Steven resigned first, right? Because we also needed some money to get to build out like a proper app. The first one was just
Some guys playing. He wasn't professional looking. Yeah.
yeah, and we had to be in Lagos, right? So
Yeah.
what would not happen? Steven would resign. I'll still be working, and then I'll be taking a huge chunk of my salary and be putting
Put.
it into the business. Because at the time we now have to hire um 2 more
If you're
engineers to work with Steven.
okay. Mm.
Right? But we're fully clear on the point where I would resign. So and again, this story is a bit different because Steven and I have a history and we're very good friends, and he had enough trust in me to know that I was not playing the game where almost if he had me as the game worker. No, no, he absolutely didn't know that. He absolutely didn't feel that way, right? So that's another key thing. Having the right partnership
Yeah.
and all that is very, very critical. So yes, we tested, we were practical, we knew that for us to demonstrate enough to get support, I would have to be working because we needed some money. Right. So I was still working. And then from there, we got to the level where we could get some of our friends of our friends to provide some pre-seed capital. And we were like, look, it's now time. We have engineers on board. We got Steven moved to Lagos. We got a house where we're staying there with the engineers and everybody. It was the office and house and everything all joined together. You right? So when the time that we had agreed on, when it got to that time, I had to resign.